fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Welcome to tonight's, what's the date today? August 8th. Welcome to the August 8th, third episode, if I'm remembering my numbering correctly, of ODAT Nerd Off the Clock, the video series in which we code off the clock. What we're going to be doing here this evening is working on some more of our enhanced snippets package that we've been working on for the last little bit. I have a plan for what it is that we would like to do to be able to see this as a more, let's say, fully functional sort of package, if such is a thing. The general idea of what we're doing here being that there's the ability to add your own custom variables to snippets in Sublime Text exists, but only if you were to use the insert snippet command directly in order to specify the appropriate arguments, which means that you can set up a key binding to be able to insert a snippet that has custom variables in it, say the date, current time, something like that. But what you can't do is do that from the auto-completion panel. Until now, because the package that we're working on actually allows that to happen. And as a matter of fact, this is just sort of a little something that's possible because of some new functionalities that were added in Sublime Text 4. So, with that out of the way, I think what we should do here is jump on in and see what we can make of this thing. I have a little bit of a plan, if you will. So I have here a big list of, let's say, minimum tasks that need to happen before we are ready to call this a version 1, if you will. What we have currently is something that allows us to expand out the date with custom formats and insert the text that's currently in the clipboard into a snippet. That is all we have currently available right now, but we're going to add the ability to add even more of these things to this as we go, and we have to clean up the code, because one of the things that you will hear me say both here on streams and also on Twitch, where I also stream a couple of times a week doing other software development in Sublime Text as well, is make it work, then make it pretty. So the general idea behind that is it doesn't matter how pretty and how well structured your code is if it doesn't actually do what you want. And since we started off this project with a proof of concept of, is this a thing that would actually work? Just as an answer to a question that someone had in my Discord, which you can find a link to down below. We said that works, but what else could we do with this? Could we extend this even more? And we have even more things now than we had previously. So now that we know that what we're trying to do can work and does work, it's time to actually clean this package up a little bit for the purposes of being able to actually share it with other people. And that is what we're going to start on this evening. And the first part of that is going to be a little bit of refactoring of the existing code, because right now we have exactly one plugin named snippetloader.py. What I learned during my initial version of Override Audit, another package I've created for Sublime Text, I started off with more or less one big plugin. And it worked. It was okay, but it's a pain to navigate around inside it and add more features. I wasn't happy with that structure for being able to track what was actually happening because the files were so big and you were constantly jumping around and stuff like that. So when I came out with version 2, I did the BSR, the big scary refactor, and we cleaned up that code. And we're going to take some of those lessons and apply them to this as well for similar reasons. And there's a few things that we're going to do as we get into that. Very quickly, as a list of what it is that we're going to attempt to do over the next few streams here on the channel, and we may actually end up going later than the couple of hours that we normally do. We'll see how this all goes. Is some refactoring stuff. We don't really need to go into that into a great detail because we're actually going to be doing that next. But the code that we have right now has a single global variable that is the list of all of the snippets that we've currently loaded and decided that there's something about. Hello, David Souls, welcome. That is okay for this sample, but it's not what we really want. As we'll see as we go through all of these things, there's a sort of a relative order, and I might not even have these tasks in an appropriate order, but we'll sort of tackle them as they come up, and this is by no means a full list of things either. But what if we had one class whose job it was to keep track of all of these snippets that we are augmenting. This would hold all the snippets that we know about, keyed at a minimum on their resource name and the scope to which they apply. The reasons for both of those things will be obvious as we go through. The scope in particular is what we're actually using to know, give me all the snippets that will work for the current file type, like say Python or whatever. That's something that we need for this to actually work. The other stuff we'll get into. We also want to be able to pull this stuff out in a variety of ways as well for features as we move forward. We're going to want to add a couple of settings in here. One of those is the one that specifies whether or not the details on the bottom of the panel go. If we can do a little bit of this, because I think that buffer is still in there. But that little blue bar at the bottom that says snippet enhanced snippet, that is something we could probably make that even better, but that's not always there. Generally speaking, it's only there if some plugin actually decides to include that information. So for those people that don't like that sort of thing, that would just prefer a more traditional autocomplete experience like this one, we want to have a setting that allows us to turn on and off whether or not we actually do that. This other one here is a semi-complicated thing because there is a setting built into Sublime called ignored snippets. You can use it to say, these snippets here, I don't want them to appear in the auto-completion panel. We're going to assume that since the only thing we do with snippets is augment them by adding the ability to expand extra variables, that it's probably not super likely that a person would install our package and then create a snippet and then tell Sublime, no, don't include that one. We can set up for that, but that's not something we're going to be worried about right away. So what we want is sort of a twofold type situation, because there are in fact multiple snippets of the type that we just showed here. This augmented one is augmenting an existing one that we're currently blocking from existing because it's set into this setting. We want to be able to do that on an automatic fashion, if you will. We want to be able to load up 100 snippets, say these are the 5 that we're augmenting, let's hide those 5 and let the rest of them go. There's only one setting that allows you to do that. It's the one that's built into the core, and it is called ignored snippet. So if we want to do this, we need to modify that setting. However, in doing so, we would stop the user from being able to update their own ignored snippet. So what we're going to have is a setting called user ignored snippets. When the plugin loads for the very first time, if it doesn't find this in its own settings, it's going to grab the value of that one and plunk it in there. The idea of this is every time we want to update the list of ignored snippets, we put into that these list of user ignored snippets plus the ones that we want to add in there. That allows everything to still work the way that we want it to. There's a few things we need to do in order to get that one actually working. Good morning, Cyberlanka. How are you doing? Next, when we augment a snippet, add it to ignored snippets to hide the parent. That's the thing we were just talking about. We can't do this until that setting is applied and the snippet manager class is implemented, which is why that's the one that's up at the top there, because every time we update the list of snippets, we need to modify the list of ignored snippets. And since we need to track the snippets that we're loading in order to be able to ignore them, we need the snippet manager, and we need to implement the settings before we can actually implement updating the settings. So that makes a little bit of a sense. Now, another thing here, we've talked about this previously in the stream, but one of the things you can do with a settings object in a Sublime plugin is set a event to trigger whenever settings change in that particular settings object. Remember, there's one settings object essentially for every distinct Sublime settings file. So one for the global preferences, one for our package, one for override audit, one for package control, etc. And anytime anything in that whole hierarchy changes, an event will fire that you can trigger by a callback for, by using an event listener. So what we want to do is, from the list of user preferences, set a listener so that we can tell whenever packages are going into or coming out of the list of ignored packages for a couple of key reasons. One, if you're ignoring a package, you're taking all of its content away. And if that's the case, then any snippets that are in that, we shouldn't provide in the auto-completion system anymore. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So we don't want to do that. So we need to be able to know, that package is ignored. Let's get rid of those snippets that we already know about. And which is why we need to have a snippet manager class so that we can just easily say, find me all the snippets for class Bob. Okay, they're out. Get rid of them. Secondly, whenever something comes out of the list of ignored packages, we need to look inside of it to see, is there any snippets in there that we need to augment? And what that's going to net us is a couple of things. One is when we hide when you disable a package, the snippets go away, and when it comes out of it, they come back. That means that since package control will add packages preemptively to the list of ignored packages before it installs them to make sure that everything is fully in place before things actually load. We want to make sure that we have the ability to do that as well. So we can actually load in actual extra snippets, I should say. So we want to have the listener for that. We also need a listener on our own settings so that because of this setting that we're adding up here for user ignored snippets, since we are going to be in charge of the ignored snippet setting, and if you want to ignore any snippets yourself, you would need to put them in this setting instead. And so we need to know when this setting has been changed by the users so that we can update this one in the normal preferences. But again, all the stuff above sort of needs to happen for that. Next, custom variation on insert snippet. Lord Focus, hello, welcome. How are you doing? Hope you're having a good week so far. There is a command that is built into Sublime called insert snippet. It allows you to insert a snippet based on the name of the file. It allows you to insert a snippet based on just a content string. This is actually the internal command that we rely on in our package in order to generate the actual content of these things. We're not inserting snippets ourselves so much as we're saying whenever you pick this option from the autocomplete panel, run the insert snippet command to put the stuff in. We want to have our own custom version of that command, like insert enhanced snippet, for example, as the name of the command. And then our auto-completion system will use that command to get everything done. And the reason for that is, in the same way that in Sublime you can insert a snippet with any values you like, we want to be able to do that with enhanced snippets as well, right? You want to be able to have a key binding that inserts a snippet and also plunks in the current date, time, and clipboard and whatever else we come up with. So in that case, we want to be able to have something that does that as well. So we need that command. That way it'll work in all of the places. I actually have a version of this that I've done previously for other reasons. So we have something to base this particular idea on. Should we add our snippets into the command palette? Well, all snippets automatically end up in the command palette by default. And it always auto-filters them to only the snippets that apply in the current situation. So here we can see there are a ton of snippets in here for doing things inside of a latex. But if I do the same thing in this file, there's only a couple, the HTML and the lorem ipsum. Our enhanced snippets won't end up in the command palette. Only the normal ones will. So do we try to add those to the command palette? There are ways to do it. We basically have to just keep creating a file. It's not the greatest thing, but it's an idea. Questions anytime, David Solos. Questions anytime. The last couple of things here are just sort of think ahead ideas. Issue 3607 posits the theory that what if you expand a snippet, instead of just having a default value, it has the list of 3 defaults and it used a switch to let you pick which one you want. Is it possible to do something like that in our plugin? I think sort of, kind of. I've done it before. I can't remember how janky it was. It might be more possible now. It might be less possible. I don't know. We got to investigate that. And should our snippet loader be done in a thread or otherwise asynchronously? Because right now it happens when plugin loads. That's going to potentially hang things if someone has tons and tons of snippets. I'm not entirely sure how well that's going to work. Can a snippet be inserted after a new file is created? It certainly can, yes. Were you having an idea for something like creating a new header file in C or a new JavaScript file and having the content of the file insert out? You need, well, first of all, you can do it manually, right? Because you can create a new file and then you can type in a snippet and expand it, obviously. You can expand snippets with key bindings, so you got that going on. What you could also do is create yourself a macro, if you want to do something like that, which would create a new file, set the appropriate syntax, and then invoke a situation. In fact, here's an example of that very thing. Actually, I don't know if there's a... There should be a command for that, I would imagine. Here, let's just double check. Let's clear that. I'll show you an example of this with C because that's something that I actually have something set up for. All right, like that. So here's kind of how you would do a thing like that. I'm going to turn off command logging before I go quietly insane. Match class name with file name. That should potentially be possible. Let's show you an example of this thing first. So here's a thing you can do. Tools, macros. Sorry. Oh, are we gonna play that game right now? Are we? Hang on. Tools, record macro. We may need to tweak some stuff here. Let's see. We create a new file. We do syntax for C. And then we expand that as a sample. Now let's just save that and see what we come up with. Because it just occurred to me that there may be a tiny bit more action here. Oh, are we going to be a jerk about that too? I got it into a really unhappy state, didn't I? Yeah, it didn't record those. Fine. Here, let's see. There are ways around this. Probably. Huh. Well, definitely there's a package that does this. I know how to... Basically, the reason why my mind is spinning here, because I'm trying to think of, is there a way to do this without a simple plugin? That might not be possible because new file is a window command, and you can only record text commands in a macro. And I don't think there's a text command version of chain, unless I typed that wrong. So let's do a very quick test here. View package file, Linux user key map. I don't have an example of that here. I have an example of that here. If I did window run command, and the command to run was chain, and the arguments was commands. Maybe I didn't provide the argument correctly. And that was echo. That works. Does this work? No, that doesn't work because that's a window command too. That's a bit of a bastard operation. Still, here. I forgot that particular operation isn't a thing. So here's what we do. We just create a new plugin. And I guess we want to have like an example command. We might call this something like new Java file command like this. And it would have to be a window command like this. And then it wouldn't take an edit. And it would say view is equal to self.window.new file. Syntax equals packages/java, java.sublime syntax, like so. Save it as something, and then window.run command new Java file. We have a new file, and it is Java. So, question: what do you want to have in this thing? Because that's the only thing I can think of to put in one of these, you know? Which is probably not what you're interested in the grand scheme of things. Do you have an example of a file that does something like this? Or that looks like, that you can provide a link to? And having said that, you would have to provide said link in the Discord, because YouTube is a big old dillweed. Or paste it in here and break it up so it doesn't look like a URL. This is enough to go. Well, actually, how do classes actually work in Java? Because it's been a while. Here, check it out. There's not like a class. Really? Really? Public class name here. Yeah. Like that, right? Like it's been so long since I've done Java. Here. Let's throw one of those in too. That means you probably want to have a $0 in here. Oh, I don't like that style. I don't like that style at all. Here. Well, I'll show you an example of that particular operation right there. So the first thing we're going to do is copy that. Right? No, I don't want to save it. We want a new snippet, and the new snippet we want is this. Don't give it a tab trigger. We don't need to give that anything. Well, I guess we probably do. Let's say we set this to source.java. We get rid of that. Give it some sort of tab trigger if you like. We're also going to say description. Here's where things are going to get a little bit wackadoo for us here. If I save this as, we'll call it untitled, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it's actually named. What matters is that if there was a Java file here, then the list of snippets would include that one that I just created, whose name I can't remember, which is new class thing. So if we do that, that spits out, there's our little situation there. Now, in order for this to actually work, and this is where things may potentially get into a state where you can't technically do this wholly with a, well, I'm going to say you can't technically do this wholly without a plugin, but I'm going to show you a thing anyway. So in order to do something with the file name, the file has to have a file name. So there's kind of a catch-22 here. We'll call this mySampleClass.java, right? So the idea is if that thing exists, when I expand this out, the class name should be mySampleClass, right? So if we looked at the actual snippet, we just replace this with tm file name like this. And then when you expand the snippet, you end up with the file name in there. Of course, you're also getting the .java, which is not something you actually want to have in there, right? So we need to take care of that too. Which I know how to do, but my mind is blanking at the moment. There we go. Pulled it out at the last second. So that's an example of creating something like that. And if that's enough, then you're good to go. You can put whatever content you want inside of this thing. You know, like maybe you want to have some sort of package. Like this, so that when you do it, no, hang on, that's gonna bother me. Let's do that. You can say com.nerds.thing. I can't remember how that actually works because it's been so long since I did Java. And then you tab and away you go. Trying to splop this out so that it knows something based on the path that the file is actually in. Yeah, well, this package we're working on theoretically would let you do something like that. As a custom snippet, you could create a thing that knows how to do it. The tricky part is figuring out exactly what it's supposed to look like. So probably best off not doing something like that. But you can definitely infer the file name for the thing by just using the built-in variable tm file name. And what this is actually doing is saying that the value here is tm file name, and then run the regex. Any text that matches Java, remove it globally throughout the whole thing. You know, you could put .poop in here if you wanted, and then when you do the thing, it would end up with my sample class .poop. You know, if you wanna be childish like me, but probably you want something like that. And the nice thing here is it'll directly mirror the name. Now, where this sort of runs you into issues is if you just had a new thing and it had the syntax of Java, then when you do the new class thing, it doesn't know what the file name is to put it in there because it doesn't actually have a value yet. You might want to do something like have a default value in there or something like that, but that's why I was gonna say you could do this pretty easily with even just a simple plugin, but it requires that the file be saved to disk first, which is where the trouble is gonna be. But what you could do is say view settings set apply template true, like this. Spell true correctly, don't be like me. Then you can create a class new template listener that is a Sublime plugin dot view event listener like this, and then you would say class method def is applicable class settings return settings dot get apply template false def on post save of this particular thing. We can say self dot view dot settings dot erase apply template. I'm just whipping this off on the right off the top of my head. Contextual menu of tree view in the sidebar. Yeah, well, I mean, let's not discount anything. If you knew you wanted to create a Java file, check this out. What we have here is a command which, when you invoke it, creates a new file, assigns it the Java syntax, and applies a setting to it for apply template. And we have a thing here that says that this view event listener applies to any file for which the apply template setting is turned on. When this is applicable, returns true. The false value here is the value that's returned if the setting isn't set. So the only way for this call to return true is if the setting is actually applied. The events in this thing only apply to views for whom this applies. So when a save is finished, we can erase that and then say self.view.run command, and the command we can run is insert snippet, and then the arguments, oops, don't do that, dude. The arguments that we provide to this bad boy, which is going to look a little something like that. Boy, that is really not going well for me, is it? It's going to be file, I think. Well, I guess the easiest way to look is over here because we're actually using it in this thing. Oh, that's right. We're using it a different way. Never mind. That's not going to apply. Name, yeah. Relative path to the Sublime snippet to be inserted. Shit, what was the name of that? Was it file? I am not having a good day today. It's name. All right. I had it right. Never trust myself. You know how it goes. Packages, user, untitled, .sublime, snippet. So the theory is that what you would do with this content, let's just take that part out, but you get the idea. The snippet can contain anything. This file is in packages user and it's named that, which is where the text for the other thing comes from. So in order to test this out, we need to do this. Now this tab is here. As soon as we save this as, let's say, something.java, this file, this thing automatically populates in with that text. So taken together, this little teeny weeny teeny tiny plugin right here will allow this to do what you want. If this snippet is a small, short little bit of stuff, you can actually inline it directly into here as well. So you don't have to have a separate file. An example of that can be found in the default package if that sort of thing is interesting. We could do the view package file for default new templates. You know, so another thing that we could actually do here is just steal this stuff here that was written, so I don't have to write it again. Plop that in there like this, and then in the same way that this is doing this with the actual content of this thing, we could do the exact same thing in our little plugin right here. So instead of doing that, we would do this. But there was something else in there that at the end, right? No, just the end. All right. Then you could take the contents of your snippet, just that part, put it in here like this. Well, maybe indented as appropriate. And then we change this from name to content and use that instead. Now, the exact sort of thing will happen here. If you run the command again, we come up with that. We save it as, say, something.java. Oh, I'm going to replace it. Oh, no, that's terrible. Oh, crap, I broke it. I broke it. I spelled contents wrong, didn't I? I hate when they do that. When good demos go bad, you know? Now it's jamming it directly in there, and you don't have to have the snippet file. So that's one of the nice things about this. If this is going to be a... not that one, sorry. By the way, this is the trick that's used-ish for the things that we just did, creating a new snippet, creating a new plugin, and the like. You can do the same sort of thing here. The problem is your snippet wants to use the file name, and it can't know the file name until the file has been saved. So in that particular case, we have to have this little extra bit of glue jimmy jam in here in order to make that work the way that you want. But that is as simplistic as it is to do that. So if we wanted to, you could augment this even further so that you could right click on this and create, like, you know, new file. Instead of new, it could say like new Java file, and then you pick that, and then it runs the command and does all the stuff, you know. But this is a simple example of being able to do a thing just like that, which hopefully is whirlwind and actually kind of helpful and not you know, awful in the extreme or the like. Whoops. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. We can handle that. Okay. Hey, no problem. I think... Do we have anything? I don't think we do. If you're interested in adding something like that to this, we can go over that as well. It's also sort of a nice idea for an additional plugin. If you imagine the situation that instead of just asking me for the name of a new file, you give it the name of the file and the extension, and based on the extension, it figures out what the syntax should be and automatically pulls an appropriate template once you save the file. Is an example of something that can actually happen, but more than likely there's already a package that does that. I don't know what it is offhand because I just tend to do things the manual way. I'm going to rename this to auto generate Java stub, just in case I'm ever interested in cleaning that stuff up later. So let's get to our actual... Oh, there's something I'm forgetting here as one of the items that needs to happen. So hang on for just one tick while I double check a separate list. Yeah, you're pretty bright there, bro. Allow me to repair that. We are looking for you. Snippet class, got it. Watch settings, got it. API method for registering a snippet handler class. We have that listed up there as a thing we need to do. We don't really care about that one. Rescan handlers, include context information. That was it. We're going to do just a slight bit of tweakage on this operation before we start the task of the refactor here, if you will. Let's do that. We'll leave you there for the time being because it occurred to me, and it's not really anything that we need to worry about at the current time, but I want to have a nice base from which to work before we start the refactoring thing. Is maybe it would be nice. One thing that we could do is we could say that when this invokes, it gets the view into which the snippet is going to be inserted as kind of context information. Because imagine that, in fact, that might be required in both of those places, all else being equal. Imagine that you only want your snippet enhancement to work in certain situations. Like maybe you want to expand the variable package name, but you only want to expand it in a Java file and not anywhere else. Or you want to have one for Java files and another one for something else that has package names. I don't know what that might be offhand. That might be a bad example, but you get the idea. Then you might want to know a little bit of information about where it is you're actually inserting the snippet, so you know what value to put into the variable, which to some degree can also be done via the scope that the snippet is expanding inside of, right? Yeah, you could have one of these. If your snippet was smart enough to know that it was Python versus C versus something else, then maybe that wouldn't matter. But I like the idea of being able to do this, because then maybe the content of the variable is the word under the cursor when you invoke it, or the line, or the name of the method that the cursor's inside of, or the mind, spins with the potential coolness that you could throw into something like this if you had that little bit of stuff in it, right? So all we really have to do is make sure that all of the isApplicables have a view and all of the variables have a view. And there's going to be a couple of those. That's the base, that's the one for dates, and this is the one for here. And then, I forgot one. Oh, we got to actually pass it when we invoke it. Yeah. We need to pass it when we ask it if it's applicable, and when we call variables, we need to pass it the view. And in order for that to have the view, this needs to be passed a view. And in order to do that, this needs to have a view. And this one's already getting it. So, really? Oh, what did I do wrong? Create snip. It gets a list of snippets and a view. Yeah. Where was it actually? Oh, we didn't carry that far enough through. That's the problem. Whoops. That's not going to work, is it? No. Oh. Something in here is trying to use view. That's going to be an issue. We might need to skip that one for the time being. Because no, actually no. What is this doing that thinks it needs that? It needs it there. Yeah. All right. So I don't think we can use the current view to know if the thing is applicable in any given situation. Or we have to be a little bit different about how that actually works. Let's punt on that for the time being, because I want to get some structural work on this thing done. The general issue here is that this thing is trying to gather all of the snippets that are special in some fashion so that it can store them. But if we tell it that it needs a particular view to be in, then it has to do this once for every file that opens, which is bad. So we either can't use the file that the thing is going to expand into to tell if it's applicable, and only in the actual expansion itself, which is doable and not a problem. Or the API is generally applicable and is applicable here or something, so that it can tell in some situations this is definitely something interesting. Does it apply in this particular case? Yes, no. So that you can say, yes, I know how to expand package name generally, but in this particular case, no, because this is a Python file, or, etc. So let's not worry about that. Let's just sort of say that as far as our to-do is concerned, we want the auto reload support from override audit. We're going to want to bring in a few different things from that and sort of split these things around. So that's the first thing we're going to do. I'm going to steal code from myself because I'm a gigantic thief when it comes to stuff like that. So we're going to need a new window. We're going to need to load the override audit package and see where we are with this bad boy. Because this file is going to be in the root. Don't know that we necessarily care. Well, I guess probably we do. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to just boost this over here for the time being because we're not going to need to look at it just yet. We're gonna call this plugin.py like this and go whoop. We do that. We're gonna say that. Do we want a lib? Yeah, I think we do. We're gonna make their lib. We're going to make their source, so we'll reload both of those things. Now that's generating errors right now because there are no such things, but that's okay. What we can do is touch lib and source such that when this file is saved, except for the part that its core is not something it actually knows about, that'll all work out okay. Now well, actually, I guess that's probably not the way to do that, huh? What we want to do is take this file and move it into the directory named source. And then rename it to core, like that. We don't need you for the time being, guy. Now that we've done that, this file can be renamed to, well, we'll call it, because that's the name of the package. So we load that, it gets all cranky because core is not a thing that actually exists, but core is in source. We just go over here to look at yo. And we're gonna do this. This part's core and key because when we get to the part where we're doing the settings watcher, you need to unwatch when your code goes away. Otherwise, you'll leak memory and such. So now we need, whoops, to in the yeah. Do we need that? Probably. We'll clean up the imports at a later date. From .core import star, like so. Oh, actually, we're gonna want from enhanced snippets import reload, and then we're gonna reload in the source module the file named core.py, like that. Import all of that, and then say underscore underscore all equals. Did I do anything special with that, or no? I didn't, did I? I did not. Okay, so how did I get around that? Oh, I see. I forgot that. Okay, let's quit that and restart. Got a little unhappy about that, but I think we're all okay. Watch this. Just to track that everything's actually working, we do that, we do that, we do that. Thanks, Color Helper. Oh, thanks, LSP. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's say we don't necessarily worry about that for the time being. Loaded is called, and this one is unloaded is called. So every time this file gets saved, it has no effect on anything. And that's because this isn't a plugin. The only thing that counts as a plugin is a Python file in the root of a package. That is only one of those, and that's this one. Saving that one is at least making that part work. So except for the part where that's not doing anything, we're pretty good here. it might be unhappy about those for the time being. Let's do that because the other thing wanted us to do it anyway. Is that an error by me? No, that's a problem with color helper. I'm not going to worry about that. There we go. So now, what we're saying here is that when plugin loaded is called, whenever this plugin loads, it should call the function plugin loaded, or sorry, it should call core.loaded and say that it's doing it. And when this is unloaded, it should print it and then do that. And the routines in here say it's called or unloaded. So when this file is saved, we see this say that the plugin is unloaded, unloaded is called, plugin is loaded, loaded is called. So right now, because this plugin is already loaded, when I hit save, it says plugin unloaded and then plugin loaded. So all of that part is working the way we want it to work. The only problem, such as it is that that file does not seem to be reloaded because it should be printing core is loading if it was actually loading it. So I missed a vital important setup step here. Oh. Here. I never actually verified that this stuff works for override audit, so when this is called, it's calling reload for the module prefix source with nothing, which then causes it to call reload for module prefix source. So calling, when this file gets loaded, it calls reload on source, causing the reload to happen here. Always forget that part. Okay. Reloading enhanced snippets source in this case, which is calling reload for that. Plugin is loaded, loaded is called. Saving this file has no effect. And here, now we see it saying that, but we don't see it actually doing anything. That's interesting. Can't imagine I could have broken it that precipitously. I spelled it right, I hope. Alright, we mimicked this part. We know that inside of source, the init.py looks like this. It's reloading. Oh, I've done too much JavaScript here. Yo. That's embarrassing. There we go. That'll probably work a little better. There we go. So plugin unloaded. Unload was called. It's reloading the source module, which causes it to reload enhanced module source. Calling that causes it to reload everything with a prefix of source that is the name core. So now it's reloading the file EnhancedSnippets.source.core. It says core is loading. Then plugin is loaded. Loaded is called. And if I save this, I get the exact same result. So every time we see that, this file is actually loading, which means that all of these things are actually doing what we want them to be doing. So we don't need any of that or that or that. That is a short enough version of that. That is a short enough version of that. And minimally, this does now everything that we want it to do. We want to have a class in there as well. Now, we need to split some of this stuff up. So let's take a little look here. In this one, maybe lib isn't as useful in the general case. We do have some utility class, a threaded class, a packages class. That's a couple of different things. The output view, stuff for metadata, and an overall init, which is just like the source one, only with a different directory name. So that part's probably, let's say, that, yeah, I mean, what the hell? Get rid of you. Go back to here. Whatever's in this one needs to be in this one. Only now this is lib. And this is utils. This is utils. Those are both utils, like so. Well, something like y'all. Now we come back to here. We need to put those ones back. There's the utils file. Boop. Loaded is called. Loaded is called. Uh-oh. Did I not? Oh, I did not remove these ones. Pardon me. We just need that part. So again, saving that file does nothing. Saving this file does this. Now, in the general case, this kind of sort of isn't actually needed, because if someone actually installs this package for the very first time, it's going to be installed by package control. Package control is going to add the package to the list of ignored packages. It's going to install it, get it in place. Then it's going to unignore it. That's going to cause it to load this file, which is going to cause it to cause reload on these things, which is actually going to get it to not do anything, pardon me, because those things don't actually do squat, because it's not actually loaded yet. These calls will actually cause it to be imported. We can call the functions and we're good to go. And then that's really all you need. But during development, we want to make sure we do that, and also during an upgrade. So this is a good thing to have. The plugin works just great. Hey, awesome, glad you're here. That is how we do. I think I even have a thing for that, yo. Okay. Whoops. Sorry, I meant to close that, not do that. Okay. We're going to need to steal some crap from here. But first, let's put some crap in here. Because we have this utils file. What we would do is I guess the first step of this operation is to factor what we have currently and then go from there, right? So all of these items should be in here. If we're going to do that, let's copy that to here. So is this used? Yes. Is this used? No. Is this used? Yep. Oh, no, that doesn't count. No regex stuff in here. Don't care. Any daytime in here? Nope, don't care. Is this in here? Yeah. So that's pretty much all we need for that. Yeah. Nothing special happening in there because we have that as an item and that as an item. So we can say now, does the core need this? Yes. Does the core need this? No. So this can go away. We save that. Where's this used? Nowhere? That doesn't seem right. We want that here, right? Alright, so this is an example of something that needs to boost out to here. What about this? That's used. Well, actually, I guess we would do the exact same kind of situation as we did there, wouldn't we? We put these in here and then say, is this used for anything? No. Is this used for anything? No. So we don't care about those two. We only care about that. And then none of those have separators between them. That seems like a bit of a... Is that what I normally do? Because that doesn't seem like what I normally do. I guess it is. All right. I guess I do something different for my JavaScript code. Okay. Oh. We're going to need to do something special with commands in order to get this to work. Again, we're not going to clean anything up here. We're just going to sort of model this on this thing over here. So if I just stick that over there, again, for the time being. We want that, and we want a refresh cache.py file as well in there. So what we know is that this class is what we want in here, and that's going to need the snippet list. That's unfortunate. All right, structure being what it is, I think we set that up first and then worry about the minutia of all of the imports that need to happen second. Yeah. We want a little something that looks like this. We need the import snippet command from there. It's going to reload in source commands. The file that it's going to load is refresh cache. And we need one of these. So from dot refresh cache import this command. wrong one. And then that pretty much, yeah. Okay, so in theory, that's broken to high hell right now. You can't believe how mind-numbingly broken this currently is in the state of actually getting it to do something. Why didn't I put that in the thing? Get snippet completion. All right, we're gonna pull that out and we're gonna put that in here. And that is going to need the snippet extensions thing. So this is where this is gonna start going belly up real quick because we probably needed the wrapper classes before we got this far, but you know. We'll make do with what we got. That is, event listener. Event listener. What are we doing for that? We're having a file named events, aren't we? Yeah, we are. That's going to be alongside the core. We're going to put that in there, and we're going to come over here. Pull that out. And import Sublime plugin. And yeah, there's a bunch of loading that's going to need to happen here. But what we do know is this also needs to contain events. And from dot events import star. I would imagine we would have named it something similar to that. Yep. The event is named you. Oh my. There's the snippet base. There's the yeah. All right. Let's close this for the time being. We might be out of the way on that one. Oh, this is going to be painful. This is going to be so painful. You just can't believe how mind-numbingly painful this is going to be. We're going to chase these down one at a time. So first of all, module, sheesh. The number of times I've done that is kind of ridiculous. All right. I mean, it's not going to actually work, so that's kind of the issue that we have here. So we need to go through all these files one by one to make sure that the code path that they're using is actually going to work. That everything that they refer to. So let's say that we start in the library. Oh. Nope, we just called it that, huh? It's only those that... All right. Good enough. Reload the file. Cool. Now, this is used in here. Yes, that's Sublime. That comes from there. Snippet extensions. All of the known classes that can potentially offer. We don't really want that per se. I mean, we want that to be there, but we want it to be managed by a class or an API, if you will. Oh, actually, I guess that's not how we would do that. In order to mask this stuff so that when we actually refactor it, it all works, we could say add snippet extension class. And normally we would do a thing like that. So the only place that something can happen here would be if we did this. So now this stuff is ready to be boosted away, and as long as we do something clever with that, which would be something along the lines of that, realistically. Add the given class, which should be a subclass of the to the list of classes, which and that's one thing we need to worry about here, and get the list of currently known snippet variable extension classes, which is what this thing uses, which allows us to take these two things and this variable and boost them out to another file. But we're trying to get things tight as possible as we can in this particular situation, and then the rest of this stuff will also move up. Again, we're trying to factor all of this existing code into another structure to make it a little bit easier to modify, is kind of what we're doing here. So we're not trying to change anything too functionally if we can help it, just sort of setting ourselves up for being able to cut and paste stuff out. This is in this class, so we can file rather, so we can get it. That's built in. That's something we imported. So that part's cool. That's all cool. That is in this file, yeah. That's in the utils file. So that's cool. Snippet list is the value that was passed in because we cleverly factored this stuff sort of before. That'll all work, because who cares? And that's cool. And again, that's in this file. All right, so yeah, I'm aware. Okay, so that part seems okay. All of those are cool. That's just some resource files we don't care about. When it comes to this command, we need to go up 2 directories to get the reload command from there. From source commands, reload the file that contains this command, which is refreshcache.py. So that's the refresh cache. From that file, import that. We need the refresh snippet cache, and it's from utils. So from that's what's breaking it. Current directory is commands 1 down to get to source lib.utils import refresh snippet cache. Okay, in theory that'll make that work. And I guess if we want to clear the snippet list itself, the snippet list is not in here. This isn't used anywhere in this file, huh? Well, if that's the case, then we probably should have put it in here, because it almost certainly is used in here. It's the thing the snippets go into when they're load. One would have assumed. Will we actually get to the loading part of this operation, which I guess happens in the command. Let's find all the places snippet list has. It's cleared and passed. So here it's declared. We need it in the events, so we definitely need a get. We need a get and a clear. All right. That's the stuff that is going to be factored away. Get the list of currently loaded snippets. This will return allowing the caller to determine on its own which ones are needed. And this one is once this is done, no more augmented snippets will be clear separation of concerns is a thing. And now we have an ability to get stuff. So what did we call that? We want to clear the snippet list. So now, assuming that import works, we get the thing to clear the snippet list and refresh the cache. That's going to require us to get the snippet list. So we're going to need that as well. And I'm a little unhappy with that. Okay. Getting closer. Okay. Utils is done. Resources, we don't care. This loads the appropriate stuff. That reloads the appropriate stuff, so we don't care about that. That loads appropriate crap, so we don't care about that. Everything in the core. Let's take a look. This is going to need to import the magic thing. Let's do this. We put that in the utils, and we called it add snippet extension. That's going to be you and you. And that is almost certainly coming out of lib. So from dot is source down one into lib import you. That should more or less do what we want. Yeah. All right. I think all that leaves is the events file, which is this one. We're going to need to import create completions. Oops, sorry. I bumped the mic. I did not mean to do that. And that's going to be a thing we need to do something with as well. Dang it. You and you. From lib.utils import create completions and get snippet list. Yeah. Okay, then we need to reload you to reload everything, and then we're back to working again. Hooray! Scratch buffer prompt syntax for latex, and well, let's quit and restart to make sure that we know what we're doing right or wrong here. That is still color helper, so I still don't care about that one. Oh, a lot of crap up here though. I have a bad feeling about that. Nope, that's color helper. That's color helper. That's color helper. That's color helper. It seems to be very unhappy. That makes it tricky to tell whether or not our stuff is actually working. Wow, there's a lot of these. And we done. So, where is the plugin for EnhancedSnippets? It loaded there, all's cool. So except for the part where nothing actually seems to work, we're good. Yeah. Except for the part where it doesn't work, it works. Huh. Where, oh where, have we gone wrong? Alright, we know the load was actually happening. So that part's probably cool. I don't think that's going to be an issue. If we do that, then it's empty. So our check is this is the uncola, because the uncola is refreshing. Yeah, I think I see the problem there. I forgot to re-export those, didn't I? The commands file needs to export out all of the commands, and this one needs to do the same, and we're not doing that. The actual command is this one. So, whoops. The situation that we're seeing here, and this is an important takeaway if you're unfamiliar with this as a situation, but the thing that makes a class represent a command is twofold. First, it has to be a subclass of either application command, window command, or text command. Secondly, it needs to be in the symbol table of a plugin. The only plugin in this entire directory is this, because it is the only Python file in the root of the package. All these other ones are just Python modules. So this import needs to bring in the command and put it into the symbol table of this file so that after the file loads, Sublime can introspect it, find all of the classes that are subclasses of commands and know that they're commands and actually add them to the appropriate thing and set stuff up. But in order for that to happen, you actually have to export the dang things from here, which is what we were forgetting to do. So, in the world of the purely theoretical, once we get that part all working, we're good to go. Enhanced snippets. Oh, shoot. Again, double check that in the core plugin, we just have the simple stuff that we have here. For the source directory, which contains commands, it needs to import them. That's probably something we forgot to do. And then re-export them. I'm almost willing to bet that we forgot the important part of that. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, because except for the part where it's pissed off about some of our other stuff, it's actually tracing through the way that it's supposed to. So now we're unhappy about source commands init. From line 5 in refresh cache.py line 4. Yeah, we're unhappy about that, huh? This is not really the greatest way to worry about that, but we're gonna tweak it later anyway. Whoops. No module named EnhancedSnippets.source.lib. Whoops. Well, that's interesting. At line 14, add enhanced snippets source init. In line 7, it's trying to load something from commands. So it's going into the commands init. Where on line 5, it's looking in the file named .refresh_cache for that, which is this file at line 3, where we probably didn't put enough dots in here, because 1 dot represents a file in the current directory, 2 dots takes us to here, 3 dots takes us to there. Okay. Next, in refresh cache.py, I did not erase enough crap. Sublime plugin isn't defined. Oh, because I forgot to actually. And then that part worked. Still doesn't have any of that stuff in it, though. I think, yeah, we need to get one more reload under our belt here, because everything is always behind. So we can see there that it says the uncola because it's refreshing the list of things. And if we do this, we can see that there's a couple of ones for text. So, or latex, if you will. Scratch buffer, prompt for syntax, latex, and there's the one from the snippet. That one there. and it throws all of our dates out. I'm going to copy that text to the clipboard and look at user latex snippet and modify this. If I put that there, then when I invoke this, we see that clipboard text. All right, so we've gotten everything. We cycled our code around and got ourselves into a nice little structure here where everything is lined back up to work. It's not the greatest little bit of code, but these are the sorts of things that, you know, you have to sort of work at, if you will. We'll stick that over there for the time being, and we'll stick you over there for the time being as well, because we most certainly do not care about you. No, sir, we do not. All right. We don't. We need the auto reload support from Override Audit. We have it. So what we're going to do here is create a new branch. Call it that, but not in this repository, because that would be stupid. I meant for that to be there. All right. The file that used to be named snippet loader, that is the entire contents of the entire plugin, is now gone. In its place are a few other files. There is a file called EnhancedSnippets that is the root of this whole package, which imports all of it. Includes a reload module that you can use to reload any file contained inside of this if you know what its prefix actually is. We're telling this every time this file loads to reload lib and source, import all of the symbols, and then when the plugin is loaded, invoke that one, and when it's unloaded, invoke that one. That's 100% what we want. Next, in the lib, we want to get the reload method from the enhanced snippets. That's 2 subdirectories up. Dot is the current directory. Dot is one directory above the current directory. And since it goes plugin lib this, that's 2, and that goes there. It is a folder named lib, which is why that name is named lib, and all of the files that are inside that are listed here so that it knows what files to reload. That is utils. Once we do that, we import from it any and all symbols, and then we can re-export them out there, like yeah. The actual utility code that we created, which could be a little bit cooler, and we'll worry about that when the time comes, but for now we're just going to leave it like this. This is used for creating the actual completion object. This is a list of all the classes that we know how to extend things with. Whoops. That is the thing that actually contains snippets. We have something to add an extension to the list based on its class name, get the list of extensions, get the list of snippets, and clear the list of snippets. And then this code that we have for given some trigger text and a snippet, get back all of the things that apply to that. So we have that code there, and I'm not entirely sure why we're using trigger in that code, but we'll leave well enough alone at this point. I think only because of that. We get the list of we get the snippet completion from a thing by loading it, and if it's something we care about, creating an item that we insert into the list that is provided, which gets us around the idea. Now that we have an API for that, we don't have to necessarily pass this a list. We could just have a function that says add this. But since we're going to boost that out into a class, that's nothing we need to worry about at the moment. So all of that code is in good working order. such as it is. Now in the actual source directory, just like the lib directory, we need to get the reload from 2 levels up. We're reloading source. There's 2 files here, core and events. We need to unload both of those. And we're forgetting something very important in this particular file as well, because it's not reloading commands. Do we need it to reload commands? Let's find out. That might be inherent in what it's doing. But it is not. There we go. We need this line in here as well. So just to show why that is actually needed, if we look in the actual commands, that's this one here. This file says that whenever you import something from this, reload everything in the source.commands module and look inside this file, and because that's the one we're going to import from. And this is the symbol for it. So if we did something like loading the command like that, every time I save the root plugin, which is this one, you'll see it says that it's running the command, but it doesn't say it's reloading the command. But if this was in place, then it would. And we're going to have to do this a couple of times, because the first time it's running the code that already exists, and that change isn't there yet, so it needs to go a second time. Usually. So now that part actually works a little better now. Oh, that's right. They did some refactoring on the module code. So now we can see it actually reloading the command every time, which is what we want. So we don't want you. And we don't want you, because we know you work now. We just want that. This is why we go through these lists of things as we go through here. So in the source folder, we're going to load the core and events files, and then all of the sub items from that module. Calling that will cause it to actually reload that module, which causes it to call the init, which causes it to do the reload of the stuff that's in there, which is why all of that works. It's a sort of a cascade all the way down. And then we export the core module itself, our event listener, and our command, so that the main thing can actually pull it out and do something with the event listener. We should also verify before we're done here that this event listener actually triggers. So we'll have to be careful about that. Oh, actually, I guess we know it probably does, but we're gonna double check it anyway. This is the init file inside of the command. So again, we have to. Everything is going to involve getting the reload from the core plugin, and the deeper we go into the hierarchy, the more dots there are. So there's 3 instead of 2, because now we're in commands, then we're in source, and then we're done. And remember, the first dot is the current directory, right? In the directory that is EnhancedSnippets, go up 1 directory, which is the source directory, go up 1 directory, which is the root of the package. 3 things, that's where that file is stored, that's where we get that. And for all of what are the files in the source commands module, this one, please import that file and export it out. That's what we want. The actual code for the refresh cache command. Now we need 3 here as well for this similar reason, because this is in the same directory as the other one was, and we're importing the sample routines we threw in here in order to start compartmentalizing the stuff that made a lot more sense as a global when it was 1 file, but now that we're splitting it apart, we want that to be a little bit smarter. So we need to be able to clear the snippet list and refresh the snippet cache, and also get the snippet list. Why do we need to get the snippet list here? Because we need to clear it, we want to refresh it, and when we refresh it, we have to give it the list of things to refresh into, which is the thing we just cleared, which is the list that's returned from this. So logically it makes sense, although code-wise it's not as good as it could be, but we're not done the refactor yet, so that's why we're not too concerned about that. Now here's the core code. This is all the stuff that used to be in the single plugin, except for all the stuff that we just pulled out. So there's an enhanced pardon me, snippet base, and a couple of our little enhancements in here. And at the bottom, we actually tell it we need to inject those in. I think we're going to try to do that in a little bit more of a dynamic nature. Or I definitely know we're going to try to do that here in a more dynamic nature. But there does need to be an API so that external code can call the same thing, which is why we created that in the first place. And we have an event handler, which I think we know. No, I don't think we necessarily know that it works. Oh, I guess we must know it works because we injected the completion. So yeah, I was concerned about that part potentially not doing anything. So there we go. That is all of the changes. And split the leaves the code largely unchanged functionally, but it does restructure things so that instead of one giant hard to read plugin file, we instead have this splits the code into a library of common routines. And within the source tree, everything is set to dynamically reload if the core plugin reloads to make sure that everything is up to date. Some small tweaks were made to include the stubs of a new API. Right? So that is, you know, as easy as that is. Now, as we saw here, if you were watching along as we were making this change, it's not super complicated. It's not something that the dynamic reloading stuff is essentially a pattern that, there we go. Just wanted to make sure that it updated for that. The dynamic reload, this code that's right here in this plugin, is a pattern that's pretty useful, and it's sort of a set it and forget it kind of situation. And since I set it 3 years ago, I needed to keep looking at the other code to see how exactly I pulled that off. But you probably also noticed that every time I had a problem, I knew more or less exactly where to look, because these are the sorts of problems that you run into on a regular basis when you're doing something like this and you forget, which is that everything needs to call this from the top level. It's something that forces a reload of a file to actually happen. This doesn't help us when a new file is added, but that's because it won't be in the list of stuff. But that's okay, because if the file didn't exist previously, we don't need to reload it. It'll just automatically natively reload, right? When you call this, you give it the module prefix to load, which we're assuming always starts with EnhancedSnippets dot, because that's the name of the folder and the name of the package that this is actually stored inside of or will be installed inside of. You don't have to do that. You could call this with EnhancedSnippets.lib and remove that prefix if you wanted to, or remove that part so that this vet line isn't here. But that seemed very wordy to me. It just loops over all of the modules that are known and then figures out what their name are and checks to see if it's something that we want to reload, and if so, yes. Now, the very first time through on a fresh start, these calls will try to do something, but they won't do anything because it's not going to find any of these modules, because it's the import statement that actually imports them. So it's important that the reload happen first and the import happens second, because what you want to have happen is when this plugin loads, it reloads any files that it previously loaded, and then it starts plucking symbols. If you do that in the other order, then when you make a change, you have to save the file twice to see the change, and it's basically always lagging one change behind, which will noodle your brain when you're debugging stuff, so you don't want anything like that. Inside of every subdirectory, in this case lib and source, we need to have an init file in here, which does the exact same thing as the top level one does. Here we're just passing it, saying I want to reload these modules, and it'll try to reload everything inside of those modules. But more succinctly, when it comes to the source module, it knows it needs to reload the source.core and source.events. That's these two files here. So if you use this pattern, vitally important, every time you add a file, not including the init, that you make sure you put them in here. Otherwise, they'll load because this line will load them, but they won't reload, which is an issue. And here, because commands is a subfolder, when we want to reload a module folder, we just pass this and not the name of the files, and that triggers the reload inside in the exact same way, which in this case uses source.commands, because that's what this is, source.commands. The single file is refresh cache, that's that one, and after that's reloaded, this will import the symbol to export it all out. It really does when you think about this, and this isn't anything that's specific to Sublime Text per se. This is just how Python works. So if you're familiar with that, you're gravy on this. The only thing that you need to be concerned about is that anything that is a class or an event listener, sorry, a command or an event listener, needs to be exposed to this. And as you saw, we had an import in there to actually pull in all of the commands and then re-export them out. So that is as simple as all of that business. Being busy is not a problem. I am busy. Oh man, I should probably. Nah, let's go a little bit longer here. Maybe clean a little bit of other stuff up. It's something I'm kind of curious about. Yeah, but I mean, it works as good as it did last Monday. See you, David. Have a good week. Basically, what we've done tonight is take what used to be a single file and split it up into a bunch of files to sort of start spreading the work around on all of this stuff. There's a little bit more that needs to go into this. And normally I would end the stream at 10, but let's go just slightly longer, because although these are parts of the core, this stuff here is not. These are actual enhancement-y type things that should be in their own thing, their own folder, if you will. Yeah, I mean, and I did that on purpose initially because it's easier to throw together something as a proof of concept to know, is this actually even going to work before I start going through all of this rigmarole, because it took about an hour to get us to this position from that, but it would have taken longer to do that and then try to actually write the code in that structure. In particular, because we're doing this as a Sublime plugin. If it was an application that you were just launching, it wouldn't matter. But here, we need to be very careful about how things are reloaded, because the Sublime plugin system only reloads plugins. It doesn't reload the modules that plugins load, because modules are libraries, and libraries aren't expected to change at runtime, right? So we're kind of doing our own little hot reloading thing here, if you will. Make it work, then make it pretty. Although I hear the saying is make it work, make it fast, make it pretty. I don't like that one. I want things to be fast, but I want them to work first and foremost. So let's see. We want, in the source directory, what would we actually call this thing? Enhancements, I guess? There's one for the base, there's one for date, and there's one for clipboard. Yeah. Don't make it, well, I try not to make anything worst case scenario, but yeah. Premature optimization is the hobgoblin of little minds. I'm going to switch to coffee for a minute here. What have you been working on? All right. So first things first, we're going to open all three of those files, and we're going to say that this goes into base, and this goes into date, and this goes into clipboard. And then this goes into here. That leaves the core routines being a lot closer to what I would like them to be, which is just core routines. We're not actually using that, and we're, well, hang on. Crap. I'm going to put these over here just temporarily. Like so, because we're not going to need them in this thing. In fact, we don't really need anything in here, but yeah, you know what? Screw it. If we're not using them, oh, we are using that module, pardon me. In order for this to work, that has to be there, otherwise that's not going to find the symbol that it wants, right? So, cool. Next, this base code doesn't need anything. It just needs itself. It's all it needs, and it's good to go. So we don't care about that file anymore. This date file, what are we going to need here? We're going to need the snippet base. So from dot base import enhanced snippet base. We need that base class. We need the RE module for this one, and because this is date, we also need that because we're going to compile that, and we're going to need date time. And from the base file, bring that one in. Should be what we want. Everything is going to all be cool, unless we don't care about that no mo. And for the clipboard, we Well, I guess we do kind of care about that one because we want that line, so we don't got to do it again. That'll give us the base. That's just a simple find, and we need an import Sublime on that one as well. But that's pretty much all we need for that. Then we need to look at this file and do it in here. Should be the same. Enhancements. And the files here are base and date and clipboard. We don't need the command. Wubba lubba dub dub. We do want that though. Where's that stashed? From dot date import thing, from dot clipboard import thing, and then add extension thing twice. That's those files. We don't care about that. Do we even need to export anything from this? I mean, why not, right? What are you multitasking on, sir? Date is you. Clipboard is you. All right, so clipboard is that, and that one is that. So when this enhancements module is loaded, it's going to reload the base, then it will reload the date, then it'll reload the clipboard. The order here is important because we want this file to be reloaded before those two reload to make sure that they get the latest base, because they're going to be doing something. We need to import both of those things, add them, and then re-export them. I don't think anything actually cares. We might actually want to pull that from the base though. Just for the purposes of by the way, when you have a list like this, make sure to always put commas on the end. And ooh. You got to take a break now and then. I would agree. All right. The base enhancement class. Okay. And then core doesn't need to do it. Events doesn't need to do it. Oh, we forgot. We need an important little bit of business in here. That. That's the current directory. That's the source directory. That's the lib parent directory. We go into lib.utils. Import, add snippet extension, because we're going to want to invoke it there. That's a lot nicer than the way we were doing it before, and we don't need that twice. That's just a recipe for awfulness. So I'm going to quit, and I'm going to restart. We're going to look back and see, do we see any errors in our enhanced snippets? No, that's totally color helper being a very, very unhappy camper. Very unhappy. The levels of unhappiness are off the charts. Oh, it's actually a 3.3 situation. I gotcha. The color helper has a lot of top level plugins. I tend to do that the other way. Well, I guess the easiest way to see if it's working is to do this. It's still printing the list. It's an empty list. Is that correct? No. Oh, because we're not finished yet. From .enhancements import star. This is the base class for our right, I restarted. There we go. Important that it actually reloads that stuff, right? Or loads it in the first place. So reload lib, reload source, source reloads. When it loads source, it loads commands, it loads enhancements. It exports all that stuff out. What we want to know is from if there's anything specific that you're unfamiliar with, I can try to let you know or try to explain it a little bit right now as well. But indeed, most of this stuff is part of the plugin list. Yeah, this particular stuff we're working on right now is more just regular Python than anything specific to Sublime. Is that going to work? I'm going to assume not. That would work. But we don't actually want that. What we want is this. We want I gotta take that print out of there or I'm gonna go crazy. Oh, yeah. I wonder if I should have put that in the lib instead. Because that's a little verbose. It actually looked better like this. So we won't worry about that right now. Let's get this thing out of here. Basics is a good place to start. Remember, the thing that taught me how to do all of this stuff was I just spent a lot of time building stuff and playing and pressing the edges of what I knew. But to start, I didn't, I did have to spend time learning what all of the different bits and bobs were. And I was also learning Python at the same time. So if you're someone that knows Python, you're already miles ahead of me in that regard. What did we just change? 4 new files, don't care. You. The only change we made to this is that. So let's stage events and amend the previous commit, because that's not part of this change. That's just something we forgot to put into that one. So what we have now is, from the core, we have removed the snippet base, the date snippet, and the clipboard snippet, and these little bits and bobs that actually apply them to things, because they're not actually there. And if we don't need that, we don't need any of these little module things that they're pulling in here either. But what we did add ourselves here was that base class, which we just can have in a file. And it's in a distinct file because we want to be able to pull it in, not just from here, but elsewhere as well. For the clipboard one, we want that. That's the snippet. It needs to import the snippet base, but otherwise everything it needs is already in here. So that part's good. These need to be made smarter as, regexes or fines or whatever, but baby steps. We'll get there. This is the one for dates. In this case, we need the base, but we also need the regular expression and the date time stuff to be able to do things. This still needs to be made smarter as well. I'm going to add that in as a comment, because one of the things, this is one of the last things that we pulled in here, but this doesn't take care to say, oh, there's already something that generates this. It just keeps creating new variables and new variables and new variables, and that's wasteful. If you had a date with the same format in 14 places in your snippet, it would make date 1 through date 14, when realistically they're all going to end up being the same anyway. But, it's something that's nice to have. It's not something that's super vital for the time being. Yeah, I've never formally taken a Python class either. It's entirely on the job training, such as it is. That's the date file, and we included a new file which gets the reload. It gets the reload function, reloads all of the files we just created. It needs to get the snippet extension. It imports all of those things and then adds them. It doesn't add the base one. The reason why we are importing this one here is so that we can re-export it, and the reason we're doing that is because other code, not just ours, you as the user of this package might want to come up with your own thing, and in order to do that you need to create one of these classes, and it needs to subclass this to have the correct shape. So we can export it to make that part easier to do. And the last bit is here in the main. We need to do that stuff as well. Sorry, not in the main. In the main of the main init file of the source directory is what I meant to say. Along with commands, load enhancements, make sure you import them and re-export the one. We don't need to export the other two. They're not going to be used by anybody outside of us. They can be hidden. That's the only part. I think that's important there. The thing about having someone teach you the right way to do things is that it takes you longer to find out the wrong ones, and most importantly, why they're wrong. Yeah, true that. I will say, true that. Okay. This is a small change, but it moves the code for the enhancement base, as well as the two which paves the way for a little something like that is what we want. Now, 10:30, should we go? One more thing. I don't necessarily need that. Let's get rid of that for the time being. All of this stuff is gonna work. It is cool. Let's check this. The augment classes should be in a separate folder. Done. We need an API method in the package which, given a class object, will add to or update a list of known augmenters for use in snippets. Our classes should call this API, and the user could do the same thing from their user package. Right, so let's actually fix up what we actually did in there, because we have a to-do. This should notice if this class is in the list and replace the old one with the new one. That's what this part's talking about here. The reason for that is that if you wanted to have one of these things in your user package or something, then it needs to be in a plugin which will invoke that API method, and it might do it after you would save your plugin. It would re-invoke the method outside of this one reloading. I guess that does cause us a problem in that if you do that and the package reloads, your enhancements aren't told about it. So that may or may not be an issue, but we can probably find a way around that. We don't have the snippet manager. We don't have that. We don't have that. We don't have that. We basically set ourselves up in order to be able to do all of these things. Didn't flesh that one out all the way. We have that. The code that registers enhancements is not dynamic. But the full there is a function that takes a class, but it just adds it and doesn't do anything. And these are the research items. Maybe I should add this into the repository so people can see what we're actually working on, huh? We plan to have an API that allows external code to add in when the list changes, we need to rescan all of the What happens if the package reloads? We have no direct way to... Can we use set timeout to add user added classes? Okay. When the list changes, we need to do a full rescan. This also needs to trigger a rescan of all snippets whenever the list changes. Although to register many enhancements about okay. That is all of the refactoring that as far as notes are concerned. So we got that as our list of stuff to clean. I think that might be where we stop it for now, because I have a couple of things that I need to do before bed. But we are in good stead now. The next things that we can do include creating the snippet manager class. We probably want to create a class for enhancement managers as well. How about this? This is currently just a global array, but maybe we want to spiff that up a bit. In this particular case, it is a markdown file. And I think that's just by default. I don't think I fiddled the settings for that. Oh, I did. I told it to do lowercase. I don't think that is... Oh, what do you know? Yeah, all right. Yeah, while I had the file open, I did view syntax open all with current extension as and picked markdown from the list in order to associate it. You could also do that by just making it to-do.md, but you know. All right, so we are set up. We can actually start getting this stuff going. Oh, you know what? We have, as one of these things, a settings file, yeah? EnhancedSnippets.Sublime settings. Let's steal one more thing. It's not, no. By default, only files with MD markdown, MDown, markdown, and markdh are automatically detected as that. There's not a first line match in here either, is there? Yeah. So it would have to be one of those 4 extensions. So I associated it with that because that's what I like to use for that sort of thing. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look in the core here, and then we're gonna go over here one more time to override audit and look at this. And oh, we want the logger too. We want a couple of things here, so let's come back over to the core. I'm just going to stick this down here. And, well, you know what? Let's actually do this, because those two things are special. Everywhere OA setting lives, we call it S setting, and this is oh, did I have a comment in there that explained what that was doing? No, I didn't. It was probably just that. That's probably the cleverer way to make that work. This is going to be called EnhancedSnippets.Sublime settings, and then we go like this. Boop. And that's pretty much all we need for that. The magic of this is that it may or may not be something that you're aware of, but just like in JavaScript, classes are objects and functions are objects, and you can put fields into them if you want. So when this file loads, it defines all of these functions, and one of those is ES_setting. Once that's done, and Sublime has loaded all of the files, it triggers plugin loaded, which the root plugin here uses to call core.loaded, which invokes this, which says that the function named ES_setting now has a field named obj, which is the settings object you get by loading our settings. Here are some default values for our settings. Right now they're all empty because we don't actually have any, and then it does some other stuff. This particular function, you give it a settings key, and what it does is it says, here's the function, here's the default dictionary set up there. Try to get that value, and if there isn't one, set it to be none. Then, doing the same thing, check this function's object field, which is set up right here, to get the actual settings object. Ask it for the setting that you gave it, and if it's not there, provide this one. What this means is absolutely anywhere throughout this entire package, we can just say ES_setting and the name of the setting, and we'll get back an appropriate value, appropriate setting value if there is one. As long as we give it a setting that we know exists, which we should do because we are the developers, then we will get either one of the defaults from here or not. Basically, what this is going to do is check the default file here. So the full order of things is, look inside this file. Do you see the setting that I asked for? No. In that case, look in this dictionary. Do you see that value there? No. Then the value is none. But if the setting is in the file, then the get will get it right away, or this get will get it right away. And if it's not in the file, the default here will come back. You will only ever see none for a setting where none is a valid default value or you've done something silly. This just sort of guards all of the code throughout the remainder of the thing, so that nothing that wants to use settings needs to call this. You never need to try to remember what's the default value for this setting that I created. It's a set it and forget it kind of situation. All the defaults are carried in one place, which makes it a lot nicer throughout everything. The last little bit of stuff here is, should I throw this in here as well? And I'm going to say we should. You can pass this a message. We may need to tweak this because I think we have some more fantabulousness now. But the ultimate goal of this thing is that you can say in the code from EnhancedSnippets. Now we can say log hello, and it ends up in the console, the same as a print, but it's less typing, and everything we spit into the console has our package name on it. You could actually use a Python logger for this, but I was lazy when I set it up initially, and this is how I do that myself. Basically, the overall idea is you're not the only plugin that a user has installed. There are many things, and messages that aren't prefixed with the actual package that generated it are very confusing and hard to figure out where they came from. So as a good citizen in the Sublime ecosystem, if you're going to generate messages into the console, be a nice person and throw in where it's coming from. We also have extra action here because we can say status equals true, and now the word hello will appear in the status bar of the window, theoretically, if I could type correctly. So you see it there, it says hello, and then after a few seconds it automatically goes away. And we can also say dialogue equals true, spell it correctly, and then not only does it go to the console and down there, but we get a error dialog as well, or a message dialog. Sorry. We can augment that as we move forward. The print only ever exists here. Let's do this. This is balls. That's a problem. Everything in there does a print because otherwise you end up with the weird circular dependency. Ugh. Maybe we won't do that for the time being. Let's just say actually, this doesn't even... Oh. Maybe that's safe. As long as nothing in the core needs to pull anything from the lib, it's cool. Yeah, alright. From dot is lib, down one more, source.core, import log. I guess that would go here, wouldn't it? And then the print is a log. Yeah. We need to do something to actually cause that to be Cool. All right. Let's just remove that line that we know is going to bust it, and we're good to go. So we'll add in one more commit, and then we will call it a night here. So in this particular case, we're adding a settings item and a log, and we can, let's just remove that for the time being, yeah? Technically, it's currently available in package control right now, so long as you include my custom channel file. But yes, when we have it into a usable state where I'm not changing it 9 ways from Sunday every 15 seconds, indeed, it will be available in package control. For right now, it's listed in this file, thus. So if you were to do something like take this URL and do package control add repository like this, and then it's going to ask you for a custom JSON repository URL, and you put that URL in, then when you do install package, you'll see it in the list and you can pull it down. Right now it's, you know, fluxing, if you will. Package control add repository. GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket web URL, or custom JSON repository URL. Technically, you could just put the repository in there directly, but this way will work out a little bit better for you. Because when the time comes, what I'm going to do is take the file out of this. Take the package out of this file that is unreleased packages and move it into packages. This file here is already part of the repository of packages that package control knows about. So if you use the other method to do it, then when I move it over here, everything will just keep working and you'll never need to be concerned about it. You know, technically, it's probably kind of useful right now if you want this sort of thing, but we do have, as you can see here, a fair few things to do. So what we're gonna do is, and certainly the code for this is on my GitHub repository, or my GitHub profile, or actually, I guess it's not. I guess it's actually in the stealthy and hasty one, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's in the stealthy and hasty package thing. That's the repository that link came from. So if you want to see the actual code for it, that's where it's stashed. And that file, when you look at the JSON, tells you the exact URL as well. I forgot where I moved it into this one because it's part of the organization, or will be anyway. There we go. So we're going to add a simple helper for settings and logging, and then use the thing. So let's say this. A simple boost of the similarly named and used methods from the override audit. A simple helper for getting the value of a setting. And for generating output to the console. We'll do that, and then we'll push that up. So the changes that we just finished making are now officially in the repository. Which I guess for, you know, full clarity of everything here. Although I'm thinking of something that the actual repository is that one. It may not install this new version unless I tag it. But that's okay because this one does the same thing as the other one did anyway. So that's there. What I'm going to do after this stream is over, which is going to be in just a couple of minutes here because it is almost 11. We got about an hour over here. Is what I have been doing for all of these streams in this new format, in case you were didn't know. Once the stream is done, the replays go unlisted because it hurts viewership on the channel if somebody just happens to browse along and see the live replay and they don't want to watch 3 hours of coding about using Sublime, even if it's a Sublime package. YouTube will stop showing them my videos because it thinks they're not interested in watching them. So they're all unlisted. But what I have been doing is adding in a full chapter list for all the stuff that happens so that you can jump around in there. And we're also editing the description a little bit to say what actually happened. I still have that to do. What I'm going to try to do on this one, and we'll see what happens, is I can use YouTube's live editor to trim stuff off of the beginning and the end. So instead of having to sit through 5 minutes of the preload screen, we can sort of trim that off. We'll see what actually happens with this. Everything that I do, I record locally. So if something untoward happens, we can get back the same version of this that is available right now. What I think might happen is the live chat might go away. We'll see. But since it's already on the screen, that's probably not a big deal. But in any case, I'd like to thank everybody who was hanging out while we were doing this stuff. We got our refactoring completed, and that means we can now go forward with the actual fun parts of the actual coding on this thing. We have a good solid base and foundation onto which to build our code. We'll see you in the next live stream. I will be live on Twitch on Wednesday, where we're going to continue working on the ruinous pile of crap overlay system that we're creating for Twitch. I did a tiny bit of work on that outside of stream hours, so that'll be some fun times as well. Whether I see you in a Twitch stream or in the next live stream here, or perhaps elsewhere, I want you to please have a Sublime week, and we'll see ya in the next one, he said, seamlessly reaching for the button that changes the scene. Sweet.